Judiciary, the Vanguard of Democracy. The All India Professional Congress is a platform which focuses on the needs and aspirations of the working professionals in our country. This platform is intended to channelize the skills and energy of the professional class to the nation-building activity. Conceived by the Honorable President of All India Congress Committee, Sri Rahul Gandhiji, this organization is headed by internationally acclaimed author, statesman and politician, Dr. Shashi Tharoor MP. Though it was formed under the aegis of a political organization, we have made effort to make it apolitical, to bring in and involve talents from different spheres, irrespective of their political inclination. The organization has made tremendous progress in discussing and providing proactive solutions to the pressing problems faced by the people at large. The organization has also been successful in involving professional population in political and social activity. The Kerala chapter is headed by an eminent lawyer of the Supreme Court and the High Court, Dr. Matthew Kudannadan, former General Secretary of the Indian Youth Congress. He is being looked upon by the youth of the state. The Hot Seat is a very creative platform providing opportunity to the professional population to interact with the best personalities in the country on relevant issues of national significance. We were privileged to have Rajdeep Sardeshai ji sharing his views on the challenges faced by the media in the first episode of the Hot Seat, the Theory Hot Seat. It is no brainer that our country is going through its toughest times in history. The democracy in the world's largest and strongest democracies is in peril. All the pillars of our democracy are under threat. The independence of the strongest pillar, the judiciary, is under scandal. The media is under siege, and there seems no better time to discuss threadbare on the topic judiciary, the vanguard of democracy. We are lucky enough to have one of the best persons, the vanguard of human rights, Indira Jaising ji, to provide her insights. Indira Jaising ji needs no introduction as a bellwether of human rights and social activism in our country. But let me provide you some very interesting facts. Indira Jaising ji has many firsts to her credit. She is the first woman advocate to be designated by Bombay High Court, first Indian to be elected to the United Nations Committee on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and the first woman to be appointed as the Additional Solicitor General of India. In 2018, she was ranked 20th in the list of 50 greatest leaders of the world by the Fortune magazine. Dr. Matthew Kudannadan, eminent lawyer in the Supreme Court and President of Kerala chapter of All India Professional Congress, will lead the interactive session. In the audience, we have 35 eminent personalities from different spheres, including lawyers, media persons, etc. We have made a conscious effort to bring in a very promising lady lawyers from the High Court, and also we have established media heads present here. Once again, a hearty welcome to all distinguished dignitaries, and with immense pleasure, I welcome Indira Jaising ji on behalf of All India Professional Congress, and also Dr. Matthew Kudannadan to the hot seat. And now, let's wait and watch what happens when a lawyer meets a lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you, Lina. So, ma'am, we are so happy to have you here. In fact, Kerala chapter of the State Committee, in fact, discussed of various topics for the second edition of this hot seat. As Lina indicated, this is an effort, in fact, to highlight issues of national importance or various viewpoints, to highlight various viewpoints of national importance. So we used to invite most prominent eminent personalities who is in the process of who's participating in the process of national building, and we would like to strengthen those views or those stands or issues which will help us in building our nation. This is the idea. So when we discussed, everybody unanimously come to a point that the issue to be discussed is the ongoing challenge faced by the Indian judiciary or the unprecedented developments that is happening within the Indian judiciary, because we, the largest democracy in the world is looking to India, and now many are very skeptical where this nation is heading to, especially whenever there is challenges to the other pillars. The Indian judiciary has always come up and always passed the test of the time and has produced immense jurisprudence and has strengthened the democracy all the way throughout. Now I won't take much time, ma'am, because we have scheduled this session in such a way. I will be only initiating the discussion, because most of my friends assembled here are more competent than me, I am very aware. So they all hold a very definite view, they all have strong viewpoints, which also we would like to, highlight, because it should not be a view from my side or from the organization side. And generally, all of them are not Congress sympathizers. There are people across the political viewpoints and all. So we will have a discussion about 15 to 20 minutes to initiate. Thereafter, the floor will be open. 40 minutes time is kept for question answers. So first, I would like to ask you, ma'am, your long tenure as a lawyer and one of the senior members of a fraternity. Do you think our judiciary is facing the ever biggest challenge in the independent India?
I think the answer, is obvious to my mind. Okay, so I've had more than 50 years of practice in this profession, and of these, at least 25 of them have been spent in the Supreme Court of India. And I have to say that today I've reached a stage where I am no longer confident that when I step foot in the Supreme Court of India, I'm entering with the hope that justice will be done. This is a reflection of what you call the crisis. And I think the crisis is a bit of an understatement. There is a loss of confidence in the judiciary on the administrative side, on the way in which the Supreme Court is being administered. Now, some might say that this doesn't mean that the functioning of the judiciary on the judicial side is equally in crisis. But I feel that if you are compromised on the administrative side of the functioning of any institution, the judicial side is bound to be impacted. And in my mind, one of the biggest issues that was raised, and this is something that we must all be very aware of. People like me or whatever, we are called quote-unquote activists, and we are told that we are troublemakers, we are told that we don't know what we're talking about. I'm often told that you're trying to create disharmony in the Supreme Court. Shall I continue? Can you hear me?
No, we can just click.
You're trying to silence you?
My voice, always in the Supreme Court, I'm always told, Madam, don't use the mic, your voice is loud enough for us. I'm asked to switch off the mic every time when I go to the court.
Ma'am, I think you can continue. We can hear. All of us can hear.
Okay, so, yeah, I think the sound is back. Yeah. What you need to remember in this context is this time it was not the lawyers or the activists or civil society that cast the first aspersion on the functioning of the Supreme Court. It was 4 judges of the Supreme Court themselves. So whenever anybody asks me this question that, are you trying to create trouble? Are you trying to spread disharmony within the judiciary? My answer to them was, let's go back to the 18th of January 2018, when 4 judges of the Supreme Court felt compelled to come and address the media. Now, we have people from the media here. I want to say that, you know how I analyze this act of coming out and addressing the media? In my opinion, these 4 judges showed confidence in the media. They appealed to the nation through the media, and they expected the media to rise to the occasion and pick up the issues that they were talking about. So this is to me, it's a critical message of the role and the function of the media as well, because they, can you imagine the judges of the Supreme Court appealing to the media, through the media, to the nation? And you won't believe it, out of all the lawyers in the Supreme Court of India, I was the one solitary lawyer present at that press conference. My instinct told me this is history in the making. It has never happened before that judges have chosen to address the media. It showed loss of confidence in the functioning of the judiciary. It showed loss of confidence in the role of the Chief Justice of India, and the appeal was through the media to the nation. 2 sentences and I'll stop. Justice Chalmeshwar said, we do not want to be told 20 years later that we sold our souls and held our silence. And I hope some of you senior enough present in this room remember that he was actually referring, though he didn't use the name, to Mr. Soli Sorabji, who said during the emergency, or when the right to habeas corpus was suspended, he said, we don't want to be told 20 years later that we sold our soul, and he protested. And this is what Justice Chalmeshwar said. And the other judges said, democracy is in danger. Now, it was an appeal to the citizens of this country. It was an appeal to you and me. That what can we do beyond, and I have said when I was invited on the India Today conclave, I said beyond the Supreme Court there is an Janta Ki Adalat. There is an appeal to the nation. And this is how I see that press conference of 18th January, which the 4 judges addressed. That is the most critical symptom of the crisis in the judiciary.
And ma'am, as you rightly pointed out, regarding the crisis prevailing in the judiciary, so now it has grown to that level that the Chief Justice is facing an impeachment, not an impeachment one, but the opposition has definitely initiated an impeachment. And the present political dispensation is trying to level best to stop the motion coming into the parliament. The Vice President, may be a coincidence that Vice President is also in town, is also in the state today, and tomorrow he is going to be in Cochin. And his decision not to allow the impeachment motion to move in the parliament. From some quarters, it is viewed as a way to sabotage the legitimate right of the parliament members. So, I mean, definitely the Vice President has wrote a very detailed order, or view on declining the same. So, as a senior counsel or a lawyer, how you look at?
Okay. I have very clear thoughts on the subject, because I must tell you that way back in 1989, 1990, I was the one who wrote the first letter to the late Justice Sabyasachi Mukherjee, who was then the Chief Justice of India, complaining about corruption by Justice V. Ramaswamy. And my letter was based on the internal audit report of the High Court of Chandigarh, which gave details of the money that he had spent on buying mattresses and carpets and bed sheets for his residence beyond all sanctioned amounts. He had spent amounts like 1 lakh and 2 lakhs on just making phone calls from Chandigarh. He was then the Chief Justice there, to his hometown, and he tried to justify all of this. So I wrote this letter to Justice Sabyasachi Mukherjee. I would like all of you to read Justice Sabyasachi's response. He sat in open court at 4 o'clock after the proceedings were concluded. He called the Attorney General of India, who on that date was K. Parasaran. He called the President of the Bar Association, who on that date was Mr. K. K. Venugopal. And I was present in court. And he dictated an order in open court. He said, I'm addressing the bar in my administrative capacity. He said, according to me, the integrity of a judge is required to be beyond suspicion. He said standards of conduct for judges are higher than standards of conduct for any other person. And he, by that order, suspended work to Justice Ramaswamy. And he appealed to the government and said, make an inquiry into what is happening. After that, an impeachment motion was admitted. The entire impeachment process was gone through. A report was given saying that he was guilty. It was presented to Parliament, and we all know what happened in Parliament. That was the first case of impeachment that I was associated with. More recently, I dealt with the case of impeachment of a sitting judge of the Madhya Pradesh High Court. Again, something that very few people, and something for the media to understand. We got 50 signatures from members of the Rajya Sabha. The motion was admitted. The allegation by a sitting woman judge of the additional district judge of Madhya Pradesh was that a sitting judge of the MP High Court had sexually harassed her. An in-house inquiry was conducted. The in-house inquiry said, we don't have evidence. I said, let's go for impeachment. Within a matter of minutes, well-meaning members of Parliament in the Rajya Sabha signed that motion. And within a matter of 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I don't know, the then Vice President of the Rajya Sabha admitted that motion. The only thing he did is he called those individual signatories and asked them, is this your signature? The minute they said, yes, this is our signature, he admitted the motion. He wrote to the Chief Justice and said, appoint a committee of 3 judges. And now you come to the present case. So in my opinion, the Vice President of India has no jurisdiction to sit in judgment over the merits of an impeachment motion. If there is no evidence, as he claims, the motion will fail. The inquiry will come to the conclusion that there is no evidence. But so long as there is at least a motion which MPs say, we have signed it, this is a matter of privilege of the House. It's not a matter which is the privilege of the Vice President of India. Please read the provision in the Constitution. In fact, after the Vice President rejected the motion, there are people who intend to challenge his order, but now they are going to the extent of saying Section 3 of the Judges Inquiry Act is unconstitutional because the Constitution vests this power only in the House. Article 217 gives power only to the House to impeach or not to. It does not create a gateway in the form of the Vice President to reject a motion. He has to satisfy himself that these people who claim to have signed it have actually signed it. He can certainly call them and ask them, are you the person who signed this? Is this your signature? And I know that they go through a process of verification. They tally the signature with the signature available in their record. And once they're satisfied that it is a signature, they have no further role to play. So the rejection of the motion by the Vice President is unconstitutional. And I have no doubt in my mind that it's likely to be challenged. I gave you the history of other impeachment motions. By the way, there's another very interesting and important issue that I think legal minds should be looking into. And that is, you all know that there is a particular judge of the Allahabad High Court who is being prosecuted, who has been arrested for taking bribes. Now, there is already a request by the Chief Justice of India addressed to the government saying, please take appropriate impeachment, removal proceedings against this judge. Because I have come to the conclusion Justice Sharma is guilty. My in-house committee has come to the conclusion that he is guilty of corruption. My role is over, Chief Justice's role is over. The role of impeachment has to begin, and he's addressed this letter to the government saying, start impeachment proceedings. These impeachment proceedings are not being started. Again, there's a precedent. Justice Balakrishnan wrote a similar letter to the government about Sumitro Sen. He said, we have come to the conclusion that he is corrupt. We can do nothing about it. He wrote to the then Prime Minister, and he said, now you initiate impeachment proceedings. And they were initiated. So the facts are before you. It's up to you to decide why is the ruling party shielding corrupt judges.
So, moving from there, ma'am, see, in fact, as a student of law, or as a practicing lawyer, what I understood was, I don't know, I mean, I'm subject to correction. Article 226 is more powerful than Article 32. That is what I learned during my all these days. But now the recent judgment, I was taken aback by this lawyer judgment passed by the Supreme Court. And it may not be fair on my part to, dissent with the judgment or say something about the judgment. But still, I am very much concerned as a lawyer. Again, it's the conclusion part where the Supreme Court has said no court has the right to entertain any petitions based on this case or this issue. Essentially, the judgment has taken away the rights of the petitioners or the citizens of this country. So, how you reflect upon that judgment? Would like to hear.
So, before I comment on the judgment, obviously, I'll have to say that I was personally appearing in that case, so my comments will be based on personal knowledge. It's a kind of a disclaimer to make it clear that I have a personal involvement with this case. And so my comments must be viewed from that point of view. But my advantage is because I was privy to all the information, I know what this judgment is all about. Now, you're right in saying that it has taken away the right of an ordinary citizen because under 157 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, anybody can lay information before a police officer of the commission of a cognizable offense. It doesn't have to be a member of the family. It doesn't have to be an affected person. Information can be provided by anybody. So what has the Supreme Court of India done? The Supreme Court of India has given a judgment saying that Justice Loya died a natural death. Now, first of all, I do not think that judges are in a position to give a judgment that anyone has died a natural death. Only a medical professional can say whether someone has died a natural death or not. How can you? I don't know enough about the anatomy of the human body to be able to say whether a person died a natural death or not. I will call in a professional and say, here are the facts before you. What do you have to say about this? Now, the only thing that they had before them was a post-mortem report. And I told the judges that a post-mortem report is not evidence. Evidence is what is recorded in a court of law, subjected to cross-examination. The doctor who does the post-mortem comes to court and he's severely, or she is severely cross-examined. Then the judge can come to a finding on whether the doctor is speaking the truth or not. But it's not for a judge to say that this was a natural death. The judge doesn't even know how to read an ECG. Justice Chandrachud, who authored this judgment, doesn't claim to be a medical expert. So how could he come to the conclusion this was a natural death? And the post-mortem only says coronary artery insufficiency. I don't know whether there are any medical professionals in this room, but really I would suggest to you, Dr. Matthew, that the next time you want to discuss this judgment, please invite a medical professional. I'm sure you'll be having these programs again, but on some future occasion, please invite a medical professional and ask them to give you an opinion of what they think of this judgment. So coronary artery insufficiency can occur for a million reasons. A heart attack is only like saying, okay, the heart stopped functioning. It doesn't tell you what was the cause, what caused the heart to fail. What caused the heart to fail? Or it doesn't tell you what caused, we don't know. And let me tell you, we never said in court, I never said in court that this is a case of murder. All I said was that the circumstances are suspicious. And I told the court, that is the threshold. When does a police officer decide to investigate? If he finds circumstances which are suspicious. And that's all you're supposed to look into. So you're right when you say that they have foreclosed the issue. They had no business. I want to make one last comment about this judgment. Look what they did. They transferred the 226 petition from the High Court to the Supreme Court, ostensibly in exercise of powers under 142. Do you know, for me, I don't know how many of you in this room are old enough to remember the Union Carbide judgment. But as far as I'm concerned, I was there, appearing in the Union Carbide case on behalf of the victims. I protested at that time, but the court did exactly the same thing. They transferred a case from the district court to the Supreme Court and closed the case. They just shut the case down with a so-called settlement. And then Mr. Soli Suramji approached the Supreme Court and he said, cognizable offenses cannot be settled. These are offenses under 302. How can you close the case? Forget the monetary compensation. And the Supreme Court had to eat its words and reopen the criminal proceedings. Dr. Matthew, I'm not an astrologer, but I have a sneaky feeling that the lawyer judgment, I wish it goes the same way. I wish somebody says that what you have done is you have put the seal on what could be a cognizable offense. So that's my take on the lawyer judgment.
Till now, we were discussing about the issues surrounding the judiciary, especially when it comes to even to the judges and all. But yeah, it is at this time, usually the society look at to the bar where both of us are members or substantial participants in the group are all from the same fraternity and we are part of the bar. But I am surprised with the recent response of the bar associations. See, it may be for the first time in the history of this country that a bar association has tried to stop filing of taking up of a case or filing of a charge sheet or something like that. Very unfortunate, I would say. That is my personal view. And if that happened at one corner of the country, when these much of things are developed in Supreme Court, Among the judicial ranks, 4 senior judges had placed their dissent over the functioning of the Supreme Court. And I wonder, the Supreme Court Bar Association was been debating or discussing about chai and masala dosha available in the canteen. Why that the bar or the legal fraternity, for that matter, the lawyers, see, many times the lawyers were able to show the path to this country or have been so, have participated or have done the great contribution to the national building. But at the time of this crisis, as a member of the bar, what do you feel, why this sort of silence? Because everywhere in the country, voices are being silenced. Whether the bar or the lawyers community has also undergone this phenomenon.
Your question is obviously very important. I have been reflecting on it as well. Things came to a crisis for me when appearing in the case for the 8-year-old who was raped and murdered in Jammu. And the young girl who is representing the family happens to be one of my juniors. And she's doing a marvelous job in representing the family. It's the Bakarwal community, it's a backward community, tribals, they're nomads. And when the leader of the Jammu and Kashmir Bar Association, Mr. Salatia, took the Tiranga, rode an open jeep and said that he was creating a Hindu Ekta Manch to defend the accused in that case. I mean, that day I knew that something terrible that has happened to them. We need to understand that. And Dr. Matthew, I personally believe that the judiciary cannot collapse unless the bar collapses first. The precondition for the collapse of the judiciary is the collapse of the bar, because it's only the bar that can keep the judiciary in check. There is no other institution in the country that can keep the judiciary in check. So what you're seeing today is really the collapse of the bar, leading to the collapse of the judiciary. Now the question is, of course, why? So I've been observing very closely. I can only tell you from my own experience. When a petition was being argued before the Chief Justice of India on the, you all know that Justice Chandrashwar passed an order in the medical college case saying that a bench of 5 senior most judges should be constituted to hear a case relating to corruption by that same judge, Justice Shukla and Justice Kurdishi. The Chief Justice of India placed that petition before himself for hearing only to decide the question who is the master of the role and whether Justice Chandrashwar had the power to pass this order or not. On that day, Mr. of the hearing, but he went there and the court was packed with lawyers supporting the Chief Justice of India. The then President of the Bar Association, Mr. Rupender Suri, was there in the first row supporting the Chief Justice of India, heckling the members of the bar who were arguing their profession, and the Chief Justice of India was encouraging this. So, to answer your question, I think that there is such a polarization in this country between BJP and non-BJP. The Hindutva issue has poisoned public debate to such an extent that this entire poison has entered the courtroom. I've never seen it before. We have always argued our cases in an atmosphere of peace and quiet inside the courtroom. Whatever may be the happening outside the courtroom, inside the courtroom we have not had any problems even with our opponents. But today, and did you notice that the previous Bar Association President, Rupender Suri, was a member of the BJP. Secretary, Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, who was an SP spokesperson, I don't know how, people change political parties as they go and change their clothes. Like if you go and change your shirt, your shirt gets soiled or you perspire. I used to watch him every day on television, vociferously speaking on behalf of the SP. And one day I saw him being garlanded by Amit Shah on television. And from that day onwards, he was just a spokesperson of the BJP. I mean, how does this happen? I want to know, because as far as I'm concerned, politics, it's not only a very professional thing to do, but politics is a commitment. It's a commitment to ideas. It's a commitment to wanting, the country to change, to flourish. It's a commitment to democracy. It's a commitment to liberal values. It's a commitment to the values of the Constitution. But for some gentlemen, politics is like changing a shirt. And this is what I think has happened in the country. It's the kind of poisonous debate that you see outside the courtroom has entered the courtroom.
It's a really very powerful statement, ma'am. The poison has even entered the courtroom. That is what great alarm for the citizens of this country. And one last thing before I open to the floor. See, recently, the collegium has recommended two names, as you are aware, Mr. K. Joseph and Indu Malhotra. So, many of us had the privilege of arguing before Justice K. Joseph. We had been in the High Court. And we would say, with strong commitment, he was such a personality with impeccable integrity, high knowledge, and as a judge, he was being a model to all of us. He was inspiring, he was motivating judge, and we really don't know why. His name was being sent back, or the government preferred to accept or proceed with Indu Malhotra's name alone. And there also, ma'am, we are happy and we are thankful to you. You are there at least to raise that issue before the court itself. But unfortunately, again, the Supreme Court was not willing to entertain the petition. We all know that. So the reason that the government has come out with that, there is sufficient representation for Kerala Bar or something like that. So do you think that is the actual reason why K. Joseph's name was not being preceded by the government of India?
Yes, I said it in court. We learnt about the fact that Indu Malhotra was going to be appointed on the subsequent day, which would be Friday. We learnt on Thursday. And I have to say, again, it was someone from Kerala. It was a young lawyer, P.V. Dinesh, who ran around and got 100 signatures to hold an extraordinary general body meeting. I think after a long time, the lawyers rose to the occasion. They signed a requisition for a general body. But we were not satisfied with just a general body, so some of us walked up to the Chief Justice's court without even having a petition in our hand. We said we are filing a petition very soon, but it has come to our knowledge that the collegium has rejected the name of Justice Joseph, and we believe that they cannot pick and choose. It's not like the collegium sends a panel of judges. This is not a search committee, where a search committee can give you 5 names and then the appointing authority can pick one of the 5. But the collegium's recommendations are not like that. If they give 2 names, both have to be appointed or both have to be rejected. And Justice Lodha did exactly that. When Gopal Subramaniam's name was held back, he wrote back immediately and he said, this is not on. You either send all the names back to us for reconsideration or you appoint all of them. Of course, that didn't happen because Gopal Subramaniam chose to withdraw his consent, but that's not relevant. What's relevant is the stand which Justice Lodha took. So, I know you all know that after that he made a statement that what the government has done has hit at the heart of independence of the judiciary. I'm quoting him. Since then, Justice Thakur has spoken out, Justice Bala has spoken out. a lot of retired judges have said that the government has hit at the heart of independence of the judiciary by cherry picking. I said it in court that you are cherry picking. Now, we know what the Chief Justice said. He said to me, and I said to him, don't execute that warrant. And he said to me, it's unheard of, unthinkable, undone, etc., that it's a constitutional warrant, I have to implement it. You know, I didn't have the time, but I would have liked to remind him that one of the first habeas corpus cases ever is when a judge refused to execute an illegal warrant. And I said, I've been saying on television that Indu Malhotra's appointment is without authority of law. And the Chief Justice could have considered it, applied his mind and said, look, I will defer this warrant till you send me the warrant for Justice Joseph. He didn't do that. He said to me, we'll go ahead and appoint. How do you know what the collegium is going to do? We will hold a meeting and we will decide what we will decide. Hinting that they will once again recommend the name of Justice Joseph. Now, what they do behind closed doors is not my business. I said to the judges, I said, it is not my privilege to know what you do in the collegium. What I do know is what you do publicly. And what you're doing publicly is wrong. So, it's the most serious attack on the independence of the judiciary. And I did say it in open court that we know that he's not being appointed because of the judgment that he gave in striking down President's rule in Uttarakhand. So, the reasons are very clear. We don't have to guess anything about it.
So, before opening the floor, I'll say something. So, ma'am had taken a lot of initiatives. In fact, ma'am's NGO, many of you might be aware of Lawyers Collective. While I was doing my MPhil and PhD in JNU, I also got an opportunity to associate with the Lawyers Collective and various courses that has taken up. And ma'am has been very vocal and vociferous about the underrepresentation of women, especially in judicial forums. So I would also like to have your comment on why it would be, I mean, the 50% of the population, we have quality lawyers, even good people, but they are very huge underrepresentation of women in the judicial ranks. What is your comment?
Let me add to the underrepresentation of women the issue of absence of representation of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Now, it's very, very interesting that when Ravi Shankar Prasad sent Justice Joseph's non-appointment letter back to the collegium, one sentence in his letter says, I am also sending it back because there is no representation of SC and ST in the Supreme Court. Okay? So, he is recognizing the principle of adequate representation in the judiciary. So, I personally believe that the composition of the judiciary must reflect the composition of the country. It has to. From people from different backgrounds, people from different genders. I mean, now you all know that Section 377 is also under challenge. You know the Delhi High Court struck it down. I must tell you something very interesting. Many of you might have heard of the name of Justice Edwin Cameron. He's a judge of the Constitutional Court of South Africa. And when he was due to be appointed to the court, he wrote a letter to the government saying, by the way, he was already a judge, he was going to be promoted. And he wrote a letter to the to the government saying, I hope before appointing me to the Constitutional Court, you must know that I am myself a gay man and have also had HIV. With full knowledge, if you wish to appoint me, I will accept the appointment. And he was appointed. So what I'm trying to tell you is that things have moved. You will now have demands from even transgender persons. I'm handling a case of a transgender woman who was denied a job by Air India. You know that there's an ALSA judgment where the court has said that transgender person must also be given reservations, etc. So why is it? It's because your institutions of governance must have a representative character. And so my answer to you is yes. And the irony, of course, is Justice Deepak Mishra then turned around and showed me always just saying, you're always arguing for more women, and now you're appointing Indu Malhotra, and now you're opposing it. Ha ha. So I said, we want gender and justice both.
One out of the topic. See, in fact, we are an organization created among professionals. So one new appeal what we are trying to make, that the professionals, though they have very strong viewpoints, and they can contribute very well for the national building. Many of them keep away from politics, saying that politics is very dirty and it is not our cup of tea, like that. So we are urging especially the young professionals to come into politics. So if it is dirty, you come and clean it. Otherwise, it is not going to get cleaned. So there is an appeal to all of us. We are giving an appeal to the professionals to come and join politics for the betterment of the politics. So what's your view?
Oh, I believe that every single one of us is a political human being. I believe that politics is the air we breathe. You cannot be. It's stupid to think that you are not political. You are. You are political by virtue of being a citizen. And therefore, we are a country which is based on electoral politics. We have a party system. And therefore, I disagree with people who say that politics is dirty. Politics is not dirty, politicians maybe. But to say that, boycott politics, I don't understand it. If you're boycotting politics, you're boycotting democracy. What do you want then, if you don't want politics? Politics, of course, can be combined with social activism. It can be combined with. It doesn't mean all of us have to contest an election. I don't contest elections, but that doesn't mean I'm not political. So politics can't be confined only to electoral politics.
So with this, now the floor is open for questions. I would urge, to maximum have half an hour to interact. So confine yourself to one single question if possible. So now the floor is open.
Ma'am, now you highlighted the major problems and issues that the Indian judiciary is facing. What do you think are the 3 measures that have to be initiated at this stage to rectify these problems?
That can be initiated. Okay, very sadly, well, I think, again, the ball is in our court. And when I say our court, I mean outside the judge's court. Okay? So, I can tell you that you asked about lawyers. I can tell you that as of today, the Bombay Bar Association has initiated a resolution in a general body meeting condemning the action of the Jammu and Kashmir lawyers in obstructing the filing of a charge sheet. So one issue is quite, and since there are so many lawyers present in this room, I too would like to make an appeal to you through your associations to pass similar resolutions condemning the action of the Jammu and Kashmir Bar Association in resisting the filing of a charge sheet against accused who have been accused of rape and murder of an 8-year-old, and support the lawyers who are representing the victim. So, I think when institutions fail, just to answer your questions, and the Supreme Court has failed us, I want to be very clear. When institutions fail, the ball is back in the court of ordinary people like you and me, who have to raise our voice and who have to protest. Look, ultimately, it's not just the judiciary that's collapsing in this country, it's democracy which is collapsing in this country. Your title, of course, is the judiciary and democracy. So I was having some interesting conversations, and one of the issues that came up is that the collapse of democracy comes before the collapse of the judiciary. And well, I can only say that, we have an election year. We are heading into an election year. I think this is the year we have to be very vigilant. We have to be very active, and we have to make up our minds actually whether we've had 5 years of rule by the present government. Is it a democratic government? Has it contributed to the failure of institutions? If it has, then it's our duty to be active at the polls.
You were quoting.
You can briefly introduce.
Yeah, my name is MP Joseph. I was a former civil servant and also a UN civil servant. I was in the International Labour Organization. Retired now, come back. I joined the Communist Party. You were quoting Justice Chalameshwar to say that if they did not hold that press conference on 18th of January 18th, 20 years later, they would be accused of having sold their souls. Now, we also already have a tradition of chief justices selling their souls. The governor of Kerala, for example, was a former chief justice of India. And to accept the position of a governor was in a way selling the soul. That's one example that comes directly to the mind. So that has happened in the last 4 years, which itself is an indicator of how things were beginning to turn. So how then do you, my question is, how would you change the law of the land or the custom of the land so that chief justices and justices of the Supreme Court are prevented from accepting positions once they have remitted office? Because otherwise the judiciary, as you said, is the salt of the earth, and wherewith shall we salt the earth if the salt loses its flavor? And the salt is losing its flavor. So how do you then foresee a situation where we can go back from the degradation we are saying in the past few years?
Yeah, I think you've answered your own question. You have answered your own question. The solution is very simple. There has to be a complete ban on acceptance of post-retirement jobs by judges, Chief Justice or any other companion judge. These jobs, if you can call it a job, are negotiated when they are still sitting judges. Because how would you otherwise find that a judge retires and within a week or 2 weeks, he or she gets appointed either as a governor? There is a major problem with our laws as well. And the law, for example, the Human Rights Act says that the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission must be a retired Supreme Court judge. Now, these laws are written to give jobs to judges, retired judges. And I have to say, since you've been in the bureaucracy, you also know that bureaucrats do pretty much the same thing. Secretaries of the government join, tribunal which hears telecom cases. And they've gone into all kinds of tribunals. And some take premature retirement to get into those jobs. And currently, I have read somewhere that one of the sitting judges, Justice Goyal, is likely to be appointed as chairperson of the National Green Tribunal. Now, how do these rumors begin when he's still a sitting judge? He's retiring sometime in May. And so, while they're still sitting, if, I don't know whether they are, but how does this information get out? And some of them, of course, you've written your law in such a way that the outer limit of a person as chairperson of National Human Rights Commission is 75. And I think it's 70. And you have to be a retired Supreme Court judge. So the day you retire, you have to be appointed as a Supreme Court judge. There has to be a complete ban on any of these post-retirement jobs.
I'm Rajan George, a management professional, State Vice President of AIPC. My question is, you said that judiciary the poison has already ended. If it is prevented now, what worst can happen in future? Can you predict?
If the judiciary has collapsed, I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
See, the poison has ended the
Oh, the
judiciary.
poison. Oh, yeah.
If it is not prevented now, what worst can come in future?
Worst case scenario.
What worst? You mean what?
The
How
worst
much
case
worse can
scenario.
it get? Okay. Well, I think the worst has come to pass, and so what can happen in future can only be better. I don't think the court can fall any lower than it has fallen right now. And some people actually have advised us, wait for this Chief Justice to retire. See, that retirement age becomes a blessing in disguise. The retirement is going to happen in October, and you actually have very well-known jurists telling us, lump it and wait for him to retire. Some of us go back again and again to court and raise the issue. So these are the only, two ways of being, I would say. Either you resist it now, as you rightly point out, or you wait for him to retire and we see. But definitely, to answer your question, things cannot be worse than this. They can only get better.
I'm Henry Austin, Vice President of APC. This 4 judges who came out in criticism of the allocation of cases. With that background, Shanti Bhushan, former Law Minister, had filed a case in Supreme Court, and with the specific plea that the Chief Justice should not sit on that judgment because since the role of the Chief Justice was in question, he should not sit in judgment of that particular issue. Subsequently, another person, Mr. Ashok Pandey, had filed a case, and Chief Justice himself sat on that bench. It's a 3-judge bench, and very specifically, a 16-page order has come out stating the primacy of the Chief Justice and his priority in allocation of roster and other things. Is it not a contrary thing to?
It is, and many people have said that, if you look at the impeachment motion, etc., many people have said that, we don't know whether he's really corrupt or not corrupt. No one can say that because there's not enough evidence in the public domain. But there is this evidence that he did take up a case in which he himself was likely to be. And many people say that by itself is a ground for impeachment. So you're right. It's I have to come back to his question. Things get worse. Things get worse before they get better. So it's like one thing leading to, I don't know what it is. It's like, look, if you've done one thing wrong, you need to do another 10 things to cover it up. That's what seems to be happening.
Ma'am, my name is Ritu. I have a startup which promotes cycling. I also have inclination towards politics, and that's the reason of taking responsibility of social media coordinator. And thanks to you, women in my community has rights to inheritance. I have 2 questions. One is, how empowering was your husband throughout your life? Because I believe in gender parity as well. And if you could share the story. The second question is, with the current government in place, can we hope to decriminalize homosexuality? Because I believe Shashi Tharoor had moved a bill and it's nowhere right now. Thank you.
So your first question was a personal question. Okay, so he's a professional himself. And let me link it with your second question. He's the person who argued the Nas Foundation case in the Delhi High Court. And it was because of his efforts that Section 377 was struck down. So, what can I say except to say that we are both very, very strong professionals, but in our own separate fields. I work on issues of gender justice, and he works, and there was somebody here who said they were working on, he works in the field of public health, he works on issues of HIV, he works on issues of tuberculosis, he worked on 377, and he, by the way, has done 2 terms as the United Nations Rapporteur for the highest attainable standard of health, and has served in the UN for more than 6 years. So, I don't want to tell you the rest, because the rest you can imagine. when two strong professionals are put together, they often fight.
Good evening.
Madam, myself, I'm Bhargesh. I'm a lawyer practicing the area of intellectual property rights. And I can see a beautiful word behind you, the judiciary, the vanguard of democracy. But actually, we had a discussion also with regard to the democracy part. Nowadays, what if the new generation people are not, most of the new generation, they are not interested in the politics. Why? Because I found that there's a huge difference between that promises and other things. Still, I think in the common people in India still waiting for the 15 lakhs. 15 lakhs in their account. And the thing is that we can see two faces of a politician. The thing is that at the time of vote and at the time after once you enter into the power. And what is happening here? Every year that once they enter the power, every year they are increasing their salary and other benefit, everything and all, without the because we are all saying that this one democracy. And do you think it's a democracy? And because what is happening there? Because without consulting with any common people or this one man, they are increasing their all the facilities, everything, and common people, they are still suffering lack of infrastructures. So many things are there, happening there, and only there they can depend on the judiciary. So what is happening nowadays? The judiciary also most of the time biased, and they are connected with the politicians. So that's what now we can see the current scenario in India. So how we can solve this issue?
Okay, so I think I'm glad you brought the discussion back to the judiciary. But the real answer is to change the system of appointment of judges.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
And I think we should adopt the American system where a proposed appointee to the system within Parliament or in any appropriate forum. And so, see, coming back to your political question, see, I don't expect people to not have politics. They have politics, right? Including the judges, right? But because we don't know their politics and because their politics are not in the public domain, they succeed in hiding their politics at the time of appointment. So I personally think that at the time of appointment, we should be totally frank and ask them, and I don't even think there's anything wrong in a person who's been a member of a political party or whatever to be appointed as a judge. What is wrong is to hide that fact. And so at the time of appointment, all these questions should be asked. What are your political views? What is your past history? What is your financial misconduct? At the time of appointment, and then let them be appointed. That is how democracy would work. I mean, there are so many other things that can be said about democracy. And as we all know, it's because democracy is collapsing. That's the reason why the judiciary is where it is today. The press and the judiciary are the two institutions which are supposed to protect us. And if they don't, then you and I are in serious trouble.
Your laptop might fall down. Might fall down.
And kept it because the lawyer judgment is there.
My name is Shamir. I'm the one working in public health sector as a public health research consultant. And I want to thank you for coming and all the way from Delhi and inspiring each one of us to rise to the occasion and the matter currently going through India. And as you suggested, we the citizens of the country should carefully participate in the electoral process. And in a reply to Sir's question, the entry point for electoral process is through voting machines. And people say it is hacked, it is designed to select some candidates, and so on. And I want to ask you, what is the status of the voting machines in the country? Is there any cases lodged by the political parties in High Court or Supreme Court? How do you deal with, or do you personally support voting machines or ballot paper?
What was the question?
Electronic voting.
There are many cases pending in court. But the problem was at a critical point when it mattered that there was a stay order, there was no stay order. So these cases are just pending and pending and pending and pending. And you must understand, delay is one way of killing a case. But the issue itself is not going to go away. Many people who know the issue, the technical issues better than I do, have kind of demonstrated the manner in which it's not even EVMs anymore. As far as electoral politics goes, now people are talking about artificial intelligence and analytics and the role of Cambridge Analytics in manipulating elections. I don't see anything, given the whole issue of the way and the manner in which the Aadhaar Act is being operationalized and all the silos are being broken down. I don't see any reason why we are not all of us under surveillance. Of course, this event, of course, you put up on Facebook and so on and so forth. Yes, we are at least transparent about what we say and what we think. But I have no doubt that there is very severe surveillance being conducted in relation to many people. I know in relation to myself, only today I had occasion to tell somebody who was talking to me on the phone, please don't call me on my mobile number. So these are the times that we are going through. So all this technology is going to be used to manipulate elections. That's my view.
Hello, my name is Surya. I'm a lawyer practicing at the High Court. I'm also one of the directors of a collective of largely young lawyers, which is known as Citizens for Constitutional Governance. Other colleagues are also here. Ma'am, I have heard you say somewhere that you look at Edward Snowden and Christopher Wiley as insiders, as your heroes. You have picked up persons who are insiders, who have revealed the system from within. And I would like to say that I hold you in the same respect. That you are somebody who have been speaking from within the system as a member of the bar. And I remember with great regard a letter that you written to the Supreme Court CJI about sexualization of the atmosphere in court. To me, which was very poignant. Which to me it held a lot of lessons. And I think a lot of causes that you've picked up also reflect your view of your workplace, of the court as a workplace. So therefore, when you spoke of how you don't step into the Supreme Court anymore, hoping for justice, and I think that concerns you more than larger issues, because court is where justice is reflected. And it reflects not only in the verdicts it gives out, it is also how the bar and the bench operate as working professionals. So as a woman lawyer myself, I wanted your guidance on how one must respond to an atmosphere that is patronizing, something that is latently or patently condescending to women lawyers, no matter how good they are at covering it up.
Well, thank you for that comment. Very, very interesting. And you seem to be really observing what I say. Yes, coming back to those 4 judges who addressed the press conference, you mentioned that remark, right? It is true that at a public meeting, you've probably seen it on Facebook or somewhere, I made this comment that I sort of reflected and I thought to myself, who would be my heroes? Who are the people who inspire me? Who are the heroes of, or rather, who are the heroes of the 21st century? And I came up with 2 or 3 names. For me, one of them is somebody like Julian Assange, who is the founder of WikiLeaks. The other is Edward Snowden, who again put a lot of information in the public domain and alerted the whole world. And I said these 4 judges have done the same thing. They have addressed the press and they have alerted the nation of what's going on. And based on that, I did make an interesting observation. It's just an observation, but you seem to have picked up on it, that the heroes of the future are going to be insiders. If at all there is going to be any reform, it has to come from within institutions. And so I thought that these 4 judges of the Supreme Court were insider heroes. They spoke out from inside. And unlike the judges who resigned in the emergency, these judges did not resign. I remember reading a call by some media person said, oh, they should resign. Why should they resign? So that's the comment I think that you picked up on. And then coming back to the issue of women, which is very, very important. As I told you, I took up the first case in Indian legal history of a woman judge being sexually harassed by a male judge. I can tell you that the sexual harassment of women judges by men judges in this country is very rampant. It's a secret. It's the dirty secret of the Indian judiciary. And people don't raise it. But this one woman raised it, but she lost. In every forum. I can't tell you the details right now. But she does intend to challenge that report. You have had heroes in Kerala. There's a woman, do you know Anima? She was a member of the Calicut bar, and she made a comment that when she walks down the corridor of the bar association, the male lawyers look at her and say, "Oh, she's such good arm candy." And she made this comment and she put it up on her Facebook, or I don't know where, and the Bar Association of Calicut suspended her from the membership of the bar for making this comment. But she resisted. She did not withdraw her complaint. And the same thing happened to me. I've gone on record in an interview given to the Week magazine. I've said that I have been sexually harassed in the corridors of the Supreme Court. Of course, the corridors of the Supreme Court are made for sexual harassment. How many of you have been there on a working day? Okay? Packed, absolutely jumped. And you know, it's very interesting, let me tell you. So when I made this comment, I didn't name the lawyer. Everybody said, name the lawyer, name the lawyer. I said, listen, the only thing that will happen will be a defamation suit filed against me. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in court defending myself. I'm defending other people. I don't want to defend myself in court, so I'm not going to name the person. And some of these, then another male lawyer came, very interesting, another male lawyer came and told me, "Madam, in the corridors of the Supreme Court, people even steal from our pockets." So what they do, I can only tell you the strategy of sexual harassment. I can't tell you the names. So in that crowded corridor, they'll come and bump against you right in front. And then they will say, oh, madam, sorry, it was an accident. So I turn on and tell them, look, mate, I know the difference between an accident and what is deliberate. Okay, so stop it. Okay, so if you want to know how I dealt with it, I caught hold of this man by the corridor, in the middle of the corridor, and I screamed at the top of my voice, "You have sexually harassed me in this corridor." So he was, of course, embarrassed, and he looked right and left and said, no, it wasn't me. But I did what I had to do. So you are right. As far as women lawyers are concerned, they're patronized. They are, or you'll be told, okay, madam, you attend to your women's issues, don't do anything else. Okay? Don't try and be a criminal lawyer or anything like that. Okay? So yes, the male chauvinism in the legal profession and the judiciary is very deep, but we fight it.
I'm Dr. Tushara James. I'm a practicing lawyer, presently also serving as government leader here. Madam, I have for many a time with a lot of ardent admiration read about some of the comments that you have strongly made in the Supreme Court matters. However, my question is specifically relating to something very different, more so in the context of the issue of politics having been raised, as most of us, or rather all of us, have our political ideologies, political philosophies. Do you think that a lack of proper political orientation, particularly in the college campuses now, have actually contributed to a dearth in the general viewpoint of the people now? I'm saying this also in the context of us having a number of problems, the role of the political executive with the judiciary, the issue of sexual problems that we have, particularly in this field, other issues relating to an over-enthusiastic government trying to impose certain measures on the common public, etc. I think a generation of people have literally, kept their lives apart, as has been pointed out by a colleague at a point of time also. Apart from maybe WhatsApping or giving likes and some smileys which don't mean much, issue that has been raised now, a specific concern which has been raised about Honorable Mr. Justice K.M. Joseph. How many of them in the new generation have actually come forward to attack this? This state is fully aware that in the 80s and 90s, the political force in college campuses
definitely contributed to an awakening in the public fora, whatever be the issue. But I find that there is a gap in what is happening. Maybe a generation, maybe my generation, or maybe one more below this can come up to an awakening. But after that, will these issues be addressed? We have problems with the executive, we have problems with the judiciary. Who is going to address these issues? The law students that seem to pass out of the colleges now are far away from any of these matters. Now, how do we address this issue? Do you think it is important to have politics back into college campuses?
Yeah. Well, I agree that there has been a certain depoliticization of Indian society generally. It's not just of the campuses, everywhere. And forms of protest have changed. But to some extent it's inevitable. You can't stop the march of technology and so on and so forth. It's going to happen whether we like it or we don't like it. But yes, the primacy of politics in our lives, whether we are students, law students, or students of any other subject, has to be restored. And we do have to understand that what happens politically affects us all. And as far as I'm concerned, the biggest issue that is facing the country today is the Hindutva politics, well, let me put it this way, even if you succeed in convincing a student that attempts are being made to rewrite the Indian constitution, it's enough politics. That's exactly what's going on in the country today. There is a move to have a Hindutva state, right? And this is sought to be translated into law. And it's happening already in front of our eyes. What is cow vigilantism all about? Why the attack on minorities? What is it all about? So I don't believe that young people are not seeing this. They're seeing all of it. So to the extent that you see no hope, I disagree with you. And I feel that every generation finds its own voice. I belong to the generation of the independence movement. But I do see some young people who also use that, the power of the ideas that were generated by the freedom movement. They are still using it. Those ideas have not lost their force. They are being used. I mean, some of the student leaders in JNU, if you heard Kanhaiya Kumar's speech after he came out on bail, listen to that speech carefully and tell me, he's a young generation, he's all there. So I don't agree that the situation is hopeless, that's all I can say.
I'm sorry whomever has that mic with. No mic is required. I want you in the spirit, that's why I'm bringing it in this part. Ma'am, you'd know that M.K. Stalin, Tamil Nadu leader of opposition, has put out a particular circular with relation to unification of South states. Unification of states. This is particularly that this Hindutva, it's my opinion, it's just merely opinion. I would like to put up, I want your frank opinion, not as only an advocate. I want an opinion who has seen a lot of precedents happen. I've seen a lot of history happening in front of you with relation to India. So it's a grave concern as well as this thing that I personally am not very much pro to this concept. But unfortunately, the present level of identity politics that has been put forward through this Hindutva, which is succeeding. One of the greatest quote of what I've understood is that we have to understand and accept that there is a problem if you want to solve that problem. So that is a problem. I accept it. So another aspect that is being brought forward is that there is another identity politics right away available here, friend. And it is right now connected towards the most effective thing is that economical understanding and census. 1977-71 census being shifted and transformed to 2011 census, how it is affecting the economical aspect. I'm not getting into the technical aspect. The precedent set, I'm somehow connecting all this together. I want you to observe and put out what it is. I'm just elaborating what my senior has just said. Yeah. So my point is that I'm elaborating because it's a huge idea that I'm trying to present, that's why. So my question is this thing, man, that very meticulously, consciously and sequentially, CBI, CBSC, ECI, Electoral Commission of India and RBI, different situations, entirely different situations in different judicial aspects and things, are being the trust people had on that thing, the trust each citizen had on that thing is being taken away. Right now, the new thing is judiciary, and this 18th August, what has happened, that 4 prime judges have woke up and said that no one should blame me 20 years later. Whatever may be the situation, reasons and all, isn't that a dangerous trap that has been set? That's what I'm trying to point out. And sudden polarization of certain sort, that I am willing to identify myself as a South Indian Malayali rather than be a Hindutva person. And my name is Samir M. Nair.
I think, well, I mean, there's no mystery about it. I think the finance minister of this state articulated it very clearly on television I was watching. And it did come to the forefront on the role of economics. And the issue was the inequitable allocation of the planned funds between the different states. And he said it very clearly that the states of South India do feel that they are being discriminated against, and the issue of the census is only the form in which it's happening, right? The fact is that they are being starved of funds. And well, the only political fallout of that can be that, yes, it's an attack on the federal structure of the Constitution of India. So if you want me to say how I connect everything, yes, it is, you have to forget about federalism, okay? And it has to be a unitary, so-called unitary state, where only one person can run the country, right? So the economics of this distribution and the way in which the money was being allocated is again a symptom. You take demonetization, the same question. You take GST, the same question. And of course the bottom line is that there are no jobs in this country. What's the bottom line? The bottom line is not the judiciary. The bottom line is that the judiciary only comes in when our rights are violated. But our rights are violated when people don't have jobs, when people don't have enough to eat, when they don't have housing. So these are the issues, I think, that would have to be foregrounded to I remember when demonetization took place, we were also shocked. And at one point I met the Chief Minister of Delhi, and he said, ma'am, in the next few months we can expect food riots, because we don't even know whether food riots took place or didn't take place. We don't even have a proper analysis of what was the impact of demonetization. What we do know is that demonetization was not good for this country. That we know.
Just one thing. Should we fight identity politics with identity politics?
We just, I'm sorry to say that we are running out of time.
Yeah.
And we are live on stream on social media. So a lot of questions have come up from social media. So at least as a representative, we will put 2 questions to you, because a lot of people are watching it online also. So I would...
Can I ask one?
Yeah. You can pass on the mic.
Madam, it's a slightly controversial question. The first thing is about your take on reservation. Okay. And the second thing is about Hinduism. Okay. Because our law consider Hinduism as a way of life, rather than, if I'm not wrong, it considers Hinduism as a way of life and not as a religion. So are we playing into the hands of the people who are playing Hindutva politics? And second, on what is your take on reservation?
I'm sorry, it's not you or me that said Hindutva was a way of life. It was the Supreme Court of India that said it. It's one of the most, you're right, controversial is an understatement. Okay? I don't understand why the Supreme Court has to get into religion. For what? I have been saying that the court has only one religion, and that's the Constitution of India. You have no business to tell us what is Hinduism. Don't tell me what is Hinduism. I don't want the Supreme Court to tell me what is Hinduism, what is not Hinduism. I think they legitimized Hindutva.
Ma'am, my name is Manu Sebastian. I'm a lawyer practicing in the High Court.
Yeah. Final one. That's the last one.
Ma'am, you had mentioned about the poisoning vitiating the public debate. And since we are debating about protecting democracy, and now we are witnessing the surge of majoritarian politics and a new breed of nationalism. And if you criticize the ruling dispensation, you are branded as anti-national. And unfortunately, the people who subscribe to or who have succumbed to this poison, they have become large in numbers. So if democracy is the rule by majority, then should we not redefine democracy or democratic values? Because if democracy is ruled by majority, then this poison is now in majority and this poison. So how do we draw the line?
I mean, you're right. I think you're right because, you know, why I'm saying you're right, because Mr. Arun Jaitley made this comment after the judgment in NJAC. He said, you judges are not elected. He made that comment. I wonder whether you noticed it. And he said, we represent the will of the people. Now, but the point is that a constitution exists for the minorities, right? If all of us had only one point of view, you don't need a constitution of India, right? Why do you have a constitution? Because there are minorities. And minorities, by the way, are not just identity minorities, okay? I can be a minority in my ideas, okay? I consider people like myself to be the new minority of India because we don't think the way Hindutwas think, okay? So the constitution is meant to protect us. So we are already redefining democracy. It's in the constitution. The redefinition of democracy is there in the constitution. It's meant to protect minorities, and therefore I reject this argument of Arun Jaitley that we are the elected representatives of the people, therefore we are right. Does it make them right? Right will be what your conscience tells you is right, and wrong is what your conscience tells you is wrong. No Prime Minister can tell me that because I think it's right, therefore you must also think it's right. It's already there. The redefinition of democracy is there already.
We have more than 25 questions in the Facebook. We have quick 2 questions. The first one is from Ms. Anu Ponveli Joy. She says that I'm worried we are headed when the other pillars of democracy are already comedy pieces. From extreme communalism to fake news to bribes and scams, where truth is cornered very frequently. What are the immediate steps to save the judiciary? And what we should have in long term to build and sustain the democracy? That's the first question. The second question is from Advocate Samir Ilampadatha. He asks that, what's your opinion on the plea to ban legislators from legal practice? Should the MPs and MLAs be barred or not?
Okay, I'll take the second question first. See, I personally do believe that there can be a conflict of interest between your role as a politician and your role as a lawyer. Okay, and I also believe that you must have a full-time commitment to politics. And so, although I don't have a definite view on the subject, but I think that it is important to give this issue a thought, and it is important to you see, yeah. So if you go back again to the pre-independence movement and independence movement, a lot of lawyers were responsible for the freedom movement, and they were also there in the first cabinet which this country saw. But then they gave up their practice. They were not practicing as lawyers. Now you can take a technical point of view and say, all right, if you're a minister, you obviously can't do a legal practice. But if you're an MP, you can do that. But in my opinion, it's a serious job. Being an MP or being an MLA is a serious job. And I personally believe that it should be a full-time commitment, and there can very often be a conflict of interest between your role as a politician and your role as a lawyer. And as far as the first question is concerned on the issue of fake news, it's very serious, a very, very serious matter. I also really don't have like an answer to what can be done about fake news, except I've seen fact-checking happening, and you now have some excellent websites who are able to tell you whether a particular piece of news is fake or not. So even when I read something, I have to think 10 times, well, is this news or is it just fake? sometimes becomes very difficult to distinguish. So my own solution is I don't just jump into action. When I read something, I reflect on it and try and understand what is this all about. But there's also some very excellent writing taking place on social media. So obviously, social media is indispensable to our lives.
So, thank you so much, ma'am. We had a wonderful hour. So I hope everybody enjoyed the session. And before we formally wind up, I would request Rajan George, the Vice President of AIPC, to hand over a token of regard from us. I mean, it's nothing much, but just for being with us, I will invite Rajan George, the AIPC Vice President, to hand over a small moment of. And I would invite Mr. Srinivasan, the President of Kochi chapter, to formally tender the vote of thanks.
Ma'am, I have been personally reading the name of Indira Jaising raised this issue in the Supreme Court. For the last several years, when you read Hindu and other newspapers, I've repeatedly read this name. But I never thought that she's such a powerful person, such an effective person. Ma'am, I've seen many people, I've heard many speeches, but this is one of the most informative and this is one of the most thought-provoking or interactive session which I've ever participated. I'm sure that all of you will join me. Now to sum it up, I'll tell you, I'm going home with a tremendous sense of guilt. You know why? One of the rare occasions when my wife told me, Shini, can I join you? I told her, Preeti, this is only by invite. Because 99% of the cases, some Congress meeting, she says, I'm not there, you lead your life, I lead my life. But now I have to go back. Now I have to go back and tell her, honey, you lost it, you missed it. Now with people like Indira Jaising walking the corridors of the Supreme Court, even the last citizen in the country has hope in him or her. May God give you health and a long life so that your roaring voice will be heard in the corridors of the Supreme Court in the decades ahead. Thank you so much, God. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time and giving this great evening for all of us. Thank you so much. Keep coming to Cochin again and again and again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So formally, the meeting is